Hey friends, are you done with dating apps? Tired of swiping through profiles and superficial chats that go nowhere? Well, swipe left on those boring rituals. Introducing Done with Dating, the free podcast driven dating platform that's bringing human interaction back. We sit down with incredible singles for real conversations on our weekly podcast. Listeners like you get to know them deeply, then apply to date a guest or step into the mic yourself. Plus, we'll regularly host experts that discuss the dating world and provide advice on self-improvement techniques when you are taking a break from dating and focusing on yourself. Made for the bold, built for connection, your dating journey redefined through the mic. Head to donewithdating.co right now and apply. It's free. Your perfect match is one episode away. Hey everybody, we're here today with Rebecca Lipsum from Connection Club Matchmaking Company. I think you're going to really enjoy this episode because we've been talking about the dating scene, and who better to know the dating scene than a matchmaker. And so this is what we're going to talk about today. Rebecca, thanks a lot for joining me. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited too, John. Uh, Thank you so much for the warm introduction. I'd love to explain a little bit about Connection Club. I am a boutique matchmaker based out here in Boston, but I serve clients nationwide, mostly New York, Chicago, Philly, DC, Miami, mostly metropolitan areas. And I am a certified member of the Matchmakers Alliance, which is a network of trusted dating professionals. And I'm also the Boston city organizer for Pitch a Friend, which is a dating event series that takes place nationwide. And people can make 3 to 5 minute slideshow presentations about why their friends are dateable, and it's very wholesome. Just a few weeks ago, we had a presentation that was actually based out in Philadelphia of a divorced couple pitching each other. So that's really funny. And I started Connection Club because I love love and I'm a romantic and I wanted to see a change in the dating scene. The in-person events can feel very overwhelming because you're meeting like 100 people all at once and you don't know who to approach or what to say if someone approaches you. And the apps are everyone's done with the apps. People don't want to go on another dating app. They're ready to meet people in person. So that's really what I wanted to create with Connection Club, curated introductions so that people can meet each other one-on-one.
Yeah, I think it's what society needs right now because there's so much of the back and forth with dating apps, and you just get into a performance. We'll talk about that a little bit, but
Yeah.
just talk about, like, performing for people that you don't even know. You get, depending on the dating app, you get a series of photos, or you might get a short video you can explain yourself in, but it's just really hard to actually make that connection or figure out if someone's a good connection unless you connect and then, or maybe go out for a bit. But there's a lot of time invested in that. So I'm excited to hear about how you do this and how you create this base of people with whom you can create these really good matches. So you were talking about your basically national reach in terms of as a matchmaker. Could you talk about what the Boston dating scene looks like in terms of your perspective?
Absolutely. Boston is fascinating because you have this incredibly educated and ambitious population, but there's also kind of a guardedness to people in Boston. People here work very hard and they're proud of that, but it can also make them slow to open up. And there's also a transient quality since so many people come for school or they're coming specifically for a job and they're not actually even sure if they're staying, which creates this underlying hesitation about whether or not to fully invest in relationships. But that said, the people who are rooted here tend to be very deeply rooted. They have community and they have history. They take things very seriously. And in nationwide, I see contrasts with cities like New York, where the pace is very frantic, or somewhere else like maybe Austin, Texas, where things can feel a little more open and exploratory. Boston daters tend to want to make sure that something is worth it before they invest and they let their guard down. And part of my job is helping them realize that caution and connection aren't necessarily opposites.
Yeah, that makes sense. I had seen that as well myself. I had gone on a lot of dates, a lot of first dates, and decided to take the risk. But what I found in women was, like, they definitely wanted to feel that, like, hey, is this worth it or not before committing to that date? So that engagement process for me would be maybe 3 or 4 text exchanges, maybe a week of talking before actually them feeling comfortable enough to want to go out. for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great, advice, though, about the Boston area, and I like how you talked about the differences maybe between, like, a New York and a Boston. When you look at essentially clients, potential clients, do you have I saw I was looking at your Instagram, and I saw that you had some reels about how people talk about their exes, and
Hmm.
I would imagine that goes good and bad in terms of sometimes people, talk about things they could have done better with their exes, or sometimes they just completely trash their exes. And so I would assume that you would consider that a red flag. Do you have other red flags that you look to avoid in your prospective clients?
It's exactly what you said. The way that someone talks about their ex tells you everything about their self-awareness. And a warning sign isn't bitterness exactly, but it's like the complete absence of ownership. If every story ends with, "Oh, and they were just crazy," and I have no idea what went wrong, that's a sign that someone hasn't actually done reflection that's necessary to show up meaningfully in a new relationship. And something that's more of a green flag is when someone can say, that relation taught me this about myself, or I understand now why maybe that relationship didn't work. That kind of language shows more emotional maturity. And I also pay very close attention to whether someone is excited about the future or they're just exhausted by the past, because energy really matters. And I want clients who are genuinely ready to build something and not just ready to be done with being alone.
Yeah, that makes sense. The exhaustion part can definitely come in there, and I've seen it in certain dates where I go out there and this person is complaining the entire time about their past relationships, and I just know this is not going anywhere. I'm not a therapist. I'm sitting across the table from you, hoping to know more about you, not about your past.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, do you want to list some of the other green flags that you look for in some of your clients, or are you just open ended when it comes to your prospective client base?
I would say a green flag is someone that really knows what they're looking for. Some people, of course, it's good also when people are open minded and they're like, I don't really know exactly what I'm looking for, but I'm open to meeting a girl who's nice and funny. And maybe sometimes that's the only criteria I get, which is a little challenging to match because it's a little broad. But when someone knows exactly what they're looking for, like, I really want a girl that matches. I'm artistic. I want someone else who's artistic. Or a lot of Jewish clients are like, I'm Jewish. I really want someone else who's Jewish. When you're working with a more specific set of criteria that you know precisely what you're looking for in a partner, I think you're so much more likely to get better success with dating.
Yeah. That one of the things that we're trying to focus on is when people take a break from dating scenes in terms of the apps, what are they doing for self-improvement? How can they really get a more fulfilled view of themselves before they go back out and date? And that doesn't necessarily preclude them from still attending live events or different things like that or going to a matchmaker. They can still engage in society, but what are they doing to help themselves while they're kind of taking the break away from the apps? And I found a lot of value in things, the time that I took away, where I concentrated on skills and tried to build skills and things like that. As far as the connections that people are looking for, I was looking at your website and you talk about you value, connection, not performance. And we talked a little bit about that at the very beginning, but with the dating apps, a lot of it is about how you're setting yourself up, how your profile looks so that you can pull people in to maybe click more on your profile, look through your photos and maybe like your profile or send you a message. But how do you see this in terms of the need for connection moving away from the performative type of environment of the dating apps?
The dating apps now are basically audition platforms. You're optimizing your photos and you're optimizing your opening line and your profile headline. Every interaction has this extra layer of am I landing well on top of it? And over time, that really trains people to monitor themselves constantly rather than actually be curious about the other person. I work with clients to shift their framework entirely away from that. And instead of asking, how do I come across? I encourage them to ask, am I actually curious about this person right now? Presence is just sustained curiosity. And when you're genuinely interested, you stop performing because there's no room for it. And a lot of what I do in my prep work with clients is help them identify the specific moments they go into performance mode and what's underneath that. Because what's underneath that is usually going to be fear of rejection or a fear of not being good enough.
Oh, that makes sense. And so when you're looking at those people with curiosity, how do you figure out, okay, this person has, these types of interests, this person has maybe this capability about themselves that might make them a match, even though they don't maybe have the same interest in a certain topic or something. Oh, how do you, in terms of curiosity, beyond the paper stats of like age, location, job, what are the intangibles that you're looking for?
The on paper stuff tells me whether a match is possible. The intangibles tell me whether it's interesting. And what I'm really listening for is how someone moves through the world emotionally. Do they have a similar tolerance for uncertainty? Do they find joy in the small kinds of things? I think about pace a lot, not just lifestyle pace, but emotional pace. Some people process things quickly and externally, and other people process things slowly and internally. And putting two people with radically different emotional paces together is going to create fiction that has nothing to do with compatibility or values. And I'm also listening for what I'd called shared interpretive lens, the way that two people make meaning out of experiences. If one person thinks that struggle builds character, but another person sees struggle as something to be avoided at all costs, that tension shows up everywhere in interpersonal relationships.
So I would like to follow up on that a little bit. So not giving away obviously the specifics of any people, but do you have an example of that where you can say like, this is how I saw these two people in a situation where, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here. We didn't talk about this, but a situation where you maybe had seen that energy in one person and the curiosity in another, and you're like, oh, you know what? They will be a great blend.
As a matchmaker, different matchmakers come in with different biases. I'm someone that I really like pairing a STEM person with an artistic person, if both people are open to that, of course. But I usually find that it's a very complementary pairing where they're not similar on paper or it's not a match that's like purely logical, but it usually has a very nice dynamic to it where two people can have a very long-term relationship. It's my own relationship, so I'm obviously partial to that. I'm more of the social butterfly, and he's the mechanical engineer. But I've seen it work time and time again. I think it works for a reason. So, yeah.
That makes sense. I mean, my girlfriend has a very artistic side to her. She's very self-reflective. I'm more analytical. I do cybersecurity work, my day job. So I can see where you're talking about that and how that aligns because we do help to balance each other. And it's like the yin and yang type of approach to that. So that's really interesting. I think people will find that to be interesting as well. And maybe listeners will look at their own relationships and say, do I fit in that category?
Yeah.
And your site talks about this curiosity. It talks about a variety of different categories or things that you're looking for, like people who read, people who think curiously, people who travel, people who build. And so I was interested in why are those specific traits what you call out of four traits out of a whole variety of traits of people.
So those traits are proxies for something deeper, which is someone that has an inner life and that they invest in their inner life. People who read and think curiously tend to be comfortable with nuance. They don't need everything to be simple or resolved. People who travel usually have had their assumptions challenged before in a very meaningful way, which builds empathy and flexibility. And builders, whether they're building companies or communities or creative projects, understand that good things really take sustained effort and don't happen overnight. And that's precisely the type of mindset that a real relationship requires. I'm not trying to build a community of uh, a certain type of person aesthetically, and I'm really trying to gather people who share a fundamental belief that depth is worth pursuing.
Yeah, because looks isn't everything and looks fade, but the passion for life, the passion to exist together is really critical to keeping a relationship going. I've seen that in my life as well. If you love to travel, like you said, you've had different experiences. You may have been really put off by a certain travel instance or an experience in a certain country, and you're like, wow, I didn't realize that existed. I've lived across the world and I didn't realize how different some cultures were compared to others until I actually showed up and lived in those cultures. That makes a lot of sense. As far as those four traits, do you have one of those that you might prioritize over the others, or do you just try to find a balance?
That's a little tricky. I like builders
Hmm.
because I like people who are able to demonstrate a sense of commitment. I
Yeah,
think that's very important in relationships and it's an important skill in life.
excellent. And I think you had mentioned too that we're smart and like the ability to troubleshoot and things like that.
Absolutely.
So another thing about your website that I keyed in on was the three C's. So chemistry, compatibility, and commitment. And uh, have you have you seen situations where it sounds like you have seen people come in where they're just not encapsulating one or multiple of those three, and you just feel like they're not ready to make the commitment, or they may not be able to develop that chemistry with someone?
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. And I've had conversations with people who are wonderful human beings, but just aren't quite ready. And I'd rather have that honest conversation up front than waste their time or worse, someone else's time. Readiness isn't necessarily about age or relationship history. It's about whether someone has cleared enough space in their life and in their head to actually prioritize something new. On men versus women, what I observe more often than a gender difference is a difference in how commitment hesitation shows up. Women, in my experience, tend to be more self aware about not being able to commit. They'll say, I'm not sure I'm quite ready yet. And they mean it as a genuine statement. And men sometimes don't surface it until they're already in something and then they might pull back. But that's a generalization, and there are plenty of exceptions to that. But the pattern is real enough that I factor it in for how I to have intake conversations with different people.
That's pretty deep, and I've probably been the typical guy who would do something like that, getting in the middle of a relationship and then be like, "Oh, I don't know, this is not the right fit for me or something." So yeah, I'm sure that a lot of people can a lot of listeners can probably empathize with what you're saying, either as the recipient or the person who does that themselves. But I really wanted to follow up that because it sounds like you do a lot of mentoring as well, not just a matchmaker, but also a mentor. And when you were talking about having those conversations with people to let them gently know that they're not ready for this, and so how much would you say that you do that in terms of maybe this, or maybe in terms of pitch a friend? How much mentoring do you say that you do?
I I focus mostly on matchmaking. I wouldn't consider myself a dating coach, even though I sometimes consider going in that direction. But it's also impossible to be a matchmaker without being a dating coach on some level. Of course, with my clients, I always offer input or advice, or I relay feedback from their dates and I distill it to them in a helpful form. For people that need that extra support, like more support than I can give them, I refer them to a dating coach in the area. Sophia Bloom with In Bloom Services. She is really, really incredible. I referred a few clients to her, and she is someone that is always on the ball and always knows what feedback is going to be helpful and constructive to hear, what feedback needs to be delayed or heard maybe later. But yeah, that's how I kind of handle feedback and the mentoring aspect of matchmaking.
Excellent. Well, now maybe I'll reach out to her to see if she wants to be on here as well to
Oh,
talk
she's
about
incredible.
that.
We're going to the matchmakers conference together in May.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know there was a conference like that. That's pretty awesome. I'm sure there's a conference for everything, right? But that's great. Is it somewhere cool?
It's in New York. Cool
Oh,
enough.
nice. Yeah. The fast pace, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
And especially in New York at this time of year, it's going to be
Yeah.
awesome. So as far as the difficult conversations that you've had with people, when someone there is an option to join the Connection Club, to be part of the free database, right, of
Uh-huh.
candidates. What is the vetting process to join as a part of the free database?
Yeah, so when someone joins the database as a free member, they fill out an intake questionnaire that goes very well beyond the basics because I really want to understand how people think about relationships and what they've learned from past ones and what they're genuinely looking for now. And from there, I select people to have conversations with. And from that conversation, I'm really listening. And I'm not just listening to exactly what they say, but also how they say it. And I'm trying to learn, are they reflective? Are they curious about this process? Are they open to being guided? The vetting isn't about whether someone meets a specific checklist in my mind. It's about whether I believe they're in a place where an introduction would actually go somewhere meaningful for them and for others. And I'm very protective of everyone in my community. So bringing someone in means I'm putting my judgment behind them.
That is cool. That is really great. Uh, I want to just shift for a little bit and talk, if you're okay with it, about the pitch a friend concept.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you definitely seem excited about that. We weren't originally planning to talk about that, but do you want to talk about that a little bit in terms of, how does that work separate from matchmaking? What does that process look like?
So the way the Pitch a Friend works, right now we have all of our presenters set for April and May. We have April 20th in Aeronaut and May 13th in Aeronaut. We're expecting a crowd between 80 to 100 people. And it's a really great opportunity for people to showcase their friends because who better to set you up than one of your friends? And I did it years ago. I actually heard about Pitch a Friend. The first Pitch a Friend event I went to, I was pitching my friend Cal, and some girls reached out to him the next day. And it's really special when a straight female pitches a straight male because it's like signaling to other girls, like, this is a good guy. Like, you
Yeah,
should get on the program. You should learn more about him. And it's just very different than any other dating event in the city. It's also free, which is pretty nice. And it's an opportunity for people to approach dating in a more community oriented type of way.
excellent. I was just having a conversation with someone the other day about platonic female friends or platonic male friends, in relationships. I feel like it's an honor for me to have platonic female friends because maybe it means that I have some depth to me, that they like having me around. And I was saying how they typically get ahead of me when it comes to my relationships, and can usually let me know, like, this is not a good match for you, because they have that mental depth maybe more so than I do, thinking of it in the moment.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so that's cool that you pitched him, and then you got people that wanted to jump in and meet him. And so Pitch a Friend a website as well? Um,
Yeah, yeah. Pitch a Friend Boston. It's definitely something to look into.
cool. Yeah, I'm excited to check that out as well. So,
Yeah.
and then going back to your website, do you want to just give a little bit of the details about where people can find you?
Yes, yes. You can find my Instagram at Connection Club Matchmaking. And you can find my website pretty easy enough, www.connectionclubmatchmaking. And I'm sure that I'll follow up with anyone that fills in my intake questionnaire and wants to learn more about this process.
Awesome. Well, Rebecca, thanks so much for coming on today. I learned a lot about how you do things and how matchmakers might look at how they bring prospective clients in and mentor them and things like that. So thanks a lot for being here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So if you're done with endless swiping and ready for something real, don't miss a single episode. Hit that subscribe button right now on your favorite podcast app and never miss the bold conversations that could change your dating life forever. Every week, we bring you incredible singles, excellent advice, raw stories, and real opportunities to connect, all for free. Subscribe today, apply at DoneWithDating.co, and turn your next listen into your next date. Your perfect match is waiting on the other side of the mic. It doesn't matter where you live. Someone local is listening and will want to date you. We'll see you in the next episode. Subscribe now.